Mike is great. They destroyed them. And they books and
Okay. We want to welcome everybody here tonight to support our project from the Capon Bridge Library. Our goal, our mission is to develop a book of Capon Bridge and the historical part of it. We are depending on a lot of input, and we have a wonderful core group that's working with us as well as many other sources. But it's a monumental project, but I think we can pull it off with the help of everyone's input. And without further explanation, we're just honored and grateful to have Dr. Wilmer Kerns here to present pictures and explanation in the history. There's nobody that knows any more, and you can see his books here on display. We're just grateful for his visit, and he's staying today and tonight and tomorrow, and will be here to help us. So, Mr. Kerns, this is all your night. Thank you.
Thank you. Maybe we could have some of the lights out, yes. Darken it a little bit.
Oh,
yeah, that's
great.
better. That's better. Okay. Here we have a young man and an old man. The old man is the legendary Ralph Triplet, who was an oral historian in Gore, Virginia. And the occasion here was he had just written a book on Upper Back Creek history, and at the Gore Fire Station they have an annual fundraising dinner in August of every year, and he was invited to that. And we had to wait about half an hour before his time came, and Mr. Triplet would look at me and say, "Am I presentable? I look okay?" And he said, "I don't want to look my worst on my last presentation, my last public appearance." And he did die 1 year later. So I don't have to say anything about the guy on the left-hand side. But I don't have my wife here to check on my hair and my collar and things like that. But Shirley and Ricky looking after me to make sure I don't fall and so on. Okay, next. This is an undertaker 1 mile from Slanesville. Which direction, I don't know. But this was Emil April's undertaking shop, where he made wooden caskets. He was a Civil War veteran, so this would be quite old. Those of you who have studied death records, and I've gone through many, will see the names of Undertaker Lemuel April, Slanesville, and you'll see where they were buried. You learn a lot about the undertakers by reading the death records. I found at least 4 undertakers in this area. The first one was William Edwards near the trout pond, 1850 to about 1865. His records are in the Hanley Library. I first copied them from Judge William Edwards of Winchester. He's now deceased. It was his ancestor. Another one, another undertaker was John Mellon. We talked about him earlier. Dan Oates copied all those records, and he buried people from Capon Bridge also. Okay, next. Paw to PhD. The occasion here was the West Virginia Librarian Association met its annual meeting at Shepherd College, and the host was Dr. Gordon Sloanacre. He invited me in 1981 to bring my newly published Shanholt's book to a book fair. And I didn't sell one book, but I sat next, Dr. Sloanacre placed me right next to the author of this book, and he was a black man from Paw who had attended the University of Chicago and told me that his first teaching job was in Capon Bridge, West Virginia, the colored elementary school. And he told me about many of the people that he knew, white people. He played in a band with Lyle Shanholtz. And he also was involved in music at the Romney Methodist Church, which was a little unusual for that time. And after he left Capon Bridge, he became band director at Berkeley Springs High School, and they won state championships year after year. Really, some musician. But he was an old man at this point when I met him in 1981, and he said he was giving free music lessons, now living in Martinsburg, West Virginia. He taught 16 instruments, all the instruments of the band and then some. And he gave free lessons to people who couldn't afford them. Quite a fellow. Okay, this leads us to a chapter in the book, or section on the Afro-American community, because we did have blacks, slaves during the time, working in the timber industry, in tanneries, in mills, and housekeeping slaves like Black Mary. Next. In this book that you just saw the cover, can you enlarge that with the cursor? Maybe you can see it. All right, that was the first colored school in Capon Bridge. He sketched it out. I guess you can't. It's on stilts instead of cinder blocks around there.
Is there a plus in the upper menu bar? Plus, just left the center.
Yeah. And you can see where the entrance is there on the left. Okay, that's his artist version of the Capon Bridge Colored School. I think I've talked with Steve Bales about this. You've done some research on it.
Is this the one just a mile up the road? Shanholtz lived?
Yeah, where the Shanholtz lived. She was a cook at the school.
Yeah.
And around the curve. Yeah.
Dolores.
Okay, that's it. That's interesting, though, to see his concept of it. I don't know what year this was, his first year of teaching. He told me a lot of things. I didn't write anything down. But I remember quite a bit. Okay, let's move on. Skip the next one. Skip one.
I'm trying. How do I get it back to, there we go.
All right, we'll take that one. That's Black Mary, as she was known in Capon Bridge. She was a slave, born in 1824. She belonged to William Nixon, and he was a delegate to the State Assembly in Virginia, in Richmond. And when he died, I believe Samuel Cooper took her. In fact, I'm sure. Brenda told me that she's buried at Capon Chapel.
Yes.
Right. William Nixon married, or William Nixon's daughter married Samuel Cooper, and supposedly at the time of her marriage, Black Mary was given to her for her personal slave, so she became part of the Nixon household then.
You've got it.
So Brenda, didn't Gertrude put up a stone up there?
Yes,
for her?
there is a
Aunt
stone
Mary.
marking her resting place.
Aunt Mary.
Yes.
Yeah.
And Maud Pugh talks about Black Mary. Okay, the next one. Skip one more. This is very interesting. Would someone read that? It's worth absorbing. Someone read it aloud. I can't see.
George Harrison Washington, 68, colored, died at his home at Capon Bridge, West Virginia, Thursday night about 11:45 o'clock. He had been paralyzed and an invalid for the past year. He was a farmer and spent all his life in the Capon Bridge section. Surviving are his wife, the former Luvina Mason, and 20 children out of 23 born to the couple. The oldest is about 30 years of age, and they range downward to a 10-month-old infant. 13 grandchildren also survive. A number of the children live in Winchester, where they have employment. Funeral services will be held Sunday morning at 10 o'clock from the late home. The Methodist minister from Romney, West Virginia, will officiate, and interment will take place at Capon Bridge Chapel. That must mean Capon Chapel, because Capon Bridge doesn't have a cemetery.
Yes.
Readers of this article may recall an article printed in these columns April 1st, referring to the unusually large number of children of this family, and that these children have provided the entire enrollment of the colored school at Capon Bridge over a period of 8 or 10 years.
Now that is remarkable. Can you imagine one woman bearing over a 30-year period 23 children? Now, I have a copy of that April 1 article. I believe it was the Winchester Star, and I can't find it. It's so interesting. We've got to find that and somehow write a story. That's the seed of a story.
What year?
Okay, go back,
Mr. Kerns, something I got to enter. My dad went to school or knew a lot of these people, and there is some relatives that was a Washington, but he was raised by a Walker. Beth, what's his first name?
Oh, you had
He's made arrangements with us, but it'd be his grandson. And a lot of those folks moved to Winchester, but they were very faithful in us, and they'd always come back to Capon Bridge. We would handle their funerals. And they were all like from the House of Jacob. There's a black church in Winchester, and that's where we take all their loved ones to that church out on Redbud Road.
Yeah.
Is where that is. So just a little history there.
Yeah, well, thank you for that. Okay, here are two of those children. And these two ladies, I think one died about 2016. No, 2116, excuse me. They both lived into the 20th century. And I'm Facebook friends with two, either of one or the other, I don't know. But I have connections with the Washington, the Mason, and to some extent the Hamilton family. The Hamiltons were here a lot later. George Hamilton went to school here.
Yeah, Amos's wife was a Washington. Yeah.
And they're very interested in their genealogy and the history of Capon Bridge. They belong to Hampshire history, and they feel very included, and that's good, because people are interested in them and their community.
Elva Hamilton is she's a Reed now at the insurance, the tax office in town. That she's one of the Hamiltons, and if I remember right, when the Lavinia died, she was like in her 90s, and she died in a car accident. The one they called, she didn't go by Lavinia mostly, they called her Beanie.
Yeah.
Beanie.
Well, she's one of those people there, Beanie and Fanny.
Yeah.
Okay, next. All right, here are two more children. Look at the difference in age. I think that small one was the 10-month-old that talked about in the obit. I've got their names somewhere, Fanny and Virginia. Okay, next. All right, here's the George W. Washington house where the 23 children were born. It's still there. They were visiting it one day and took the picture and expressed their appreciation to the owner of the land. They said this would depreciate property, having this here, but he's leaving it because of historical reasons and out of respect to us. Now, that was nice too.
Paul
Where
O'Malley.
is it?
Oh.
Yeah,
I don't know. I've not seen that.
it's at Paul O'Malley's house where Mary lives now. That property is where the Washingtons lived, down Cole Street.
Yeah,
About a
there-
mile from the school.
That's right.
Yeah.
It's near there.
Yeah, that house is still standing. Yeah,
So as far as I know, it's still standing.
yeah.
You might want to get even a better picture of it today. There's a lot of pictures to take for this book yet, still, of what's still here.
I suspect that's Tall Paul there.
That's Tall Paul there.
It was, wasn't it?
I was hoping that Carol Kerns and Bud Shanholz would be here tonight.
Yeah.
This house resembled Ellis Shanholz's house, but we've decided it's not, even with renovations. It appears to me that's Bear Garden Mountain in the background, probably this Christian Church Road, not too far from you, down the street, Jerry. This came from Gertrude Ward's collection, and she said the Beale House, B-E-A-L-L.
Brenda, do you know? Brenda, do you know?
I heard you, Jerry. I've never seen that
I haven't
picture.
either.
I've never seen that structure. I think it's long gone.
Yeah.
But
Was
the
it
one to the
Frank
left,
Eaton's house?
what is that?
No, that's way too big for
It
Frank's
looks
house.
like it could be a store there on the left. I
Yeah.
don't know what the sign says, but it looks like a porch. There's not enough evidence.
Jerry, all the freaks, that's the ones of her house.
I think it'd be worthwhile to put this in the book. It's a historical picture, even though you don't, you know the name of the Beale House. And maybe down the road, somebody may be able to put together the pieces.
Sometimes if we put it up
Yeah.
and say, does anyone know, you get responses like that. So
I don't even
There
know
was
the
an
name
Eli
of the name,
Beale
Shirley.
back in the
The
day.
Beale name, I'd never heard
Is that
that. Have you?
I thought it was associated with the boat farm.
Oh, was it?
Here's a picture.
That's
of
the bridge.
Picture of the bridge.
Huh.
I shouldn't have left that one in. I noticed a lot of ducks were swimming in the river through the ages for 100 years. Okay, next.
Still are.
That's the Friar Inn,
Yeah.
Over there in the
or
background.
Edwards Inn there on the right.
So what number bridge was this? Remember Brenda said it was
It's number
4?
2.
Number 2?
What time period?
I don't know what year. The only thing I couldn't do in organizing the pictures, my laptop went down and I could not organize the bridges. And that was very important to me to have that organized. But I was cut off from finishing the job and I had other priorities, so bear with me. Some of them are labeled. I don't see the label. Okay, go on to the next one.
Holly and Rick was talking about the other day.
All right, now this was the 1913 flood, and this is the 1897 bridge. This is the second bridge after the covered bridge went down. Look at the people out there on it.
Yeah.
So,
The first steel bridge.
what?
This is the first steel bridge.
No.
Yeah, this is the first steel bridge. It followed the covered bridge.
The river looks wider.
Okay, so we can document that, what the bridge looked like
It does.
next.
Debbie, it does.
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
This is an interesting one. Look at those two kids sitting on the rock there in the middle. And then look down on the right, looks like a team of horses pulling, I don't know if that's a wagon or what it is.
See the wagon?
That's a shallow part of the water, but looks like the river is higher right there than it normally is. You can see a duck on the left side, very clear.
Yeah.
I'm going to leave all of these with you when I leave.
Ronnie, that could be Keith and Johnny sitting here on the rocks.
Okay, this is an interesting picture of a bear killed on Bear Garden Mountain. I've got the names of all the people. They said Cody Nixon killed him. There's a James Sloanaker in the picture. And I can provide the names. My memory fails me on there.
I happened to see a picture of it today, and that colored guy, the black gentleman, is a Washington.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
Harrison Washington there.
Uh-huh.
And I think that man second from the right is Frank Schaffnaker.
That's what this is.
That's right. There's a Schaffnaker in there.
Yeah.
It's a Schaffnaker. Two of them. And Luther. And a
Yeah.
Jim Sullivan.
That's got to be this other guy holding a gun on his shoulder.
Yeah.
They look so much alike.
Yeah,
Beth has the list of the.
yeah, the name's on the picture over here, she has it.
She's
Show us
reading
Brenda.
it off, she's cheating.
That's a big bear, isn't it?
So can you do that to Brenda?
Bottom of the photo.
Ken.
Ken?
I'm sorry.
Who's in there?
Yeah, yeah.
Just the lady beside it.
No, it is, oh, what is it?
Oh, no, it's not showing up here.
Where'd you get that, Beth?
Harold Johns.
Hey, go ahead.
That's like a
I
grip
don't
saver.
know who these people are. They're Capon Bridge ladies and gentlemen.
Shirley and Sue and.
But I thought it was interesting with the hats, and it's a Capon Bridge picture.
After church, maybe.
Probably.
Maybe you can figure out later. Another picture of the bridge. Okay. All right, this one, Gertrude Ward said, my brother John is standing there, which means if he was born in 1899, he looks like he's about 7 or 8 years old. This picture would be about 1907 or 8. You notice the Nair Bridge. This is the second bridge, the first bridge after the covered bridge. It looks very short, but when you look at it the other way, it's long. And that's her, Gertrude's father, standing on the right.
There's lots of buildings back there.
I have a good collection of
1907.
pictures of the history of this particular building over the years.
So Shirley, would that be the store building there on the other side of the bridge?
Yes, I was just thinking,
Yeah.
yes, it is.
I bet it is.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and that was a big building.
yeah.
Another picture of 1913 flood.
Look how wide the river looks. Yeah.
Boy,
Woo.
that's a 1936. And there's no bridge showing there.
My dad
I
talked
don't
about
quite
that a
get
lot.
the orientation on that picture.
Water can be scary.
My father always talked about that 36 flood, Mr. Kerns.
Can we recognize any of the buildings there?
I wonder which way it's going.
You just
I
can't tell.
can't.
I think it's downriver.
Too much
Downriver.
water.
Probably, yeah.
But look at all the houses.
All those houses that.
Because that's Bear Garden all there on your right.
Yeah.
I don't know exactly where it was taken. Okay.
With all the people standing on the bridge, probably from the bridge.
This is also the second bridge. What do we have there? Snow, ice, winter, yeah. Okay, next. All right, here's the 1936.
Whoa.
Boy, that was high, right up to the bridge. You can see the bridge on the right. And that's a Christian church. You can see, it's at Moss Rock.
Gertrude.
And
Yeah.
I like that picture.
There's a big tree that I ran into.
Yeah. I remember the whole thing.
Another, it looks like some of these are duplicates. They're not. They're if you look at the people on the bridge, the number of people and so on. Next.
Here's the schoolhouse.
That's a good picture.
That's a Capon Bridge High School, built in 1925 and burned.
Now, when did that catch on fire the first time? You don't know?
What?
When did this school catch on fire?
I don't remember.
Uh-huh.
I don't
Jerry, I think we have it down in some information, but
Uh-huh.
Now, I found this one interesting. What does he have on the wagon?
Lumber.
Lumber. Looks like what, 4x4s?
4x6s or
4x6s.
Yeah,
Yeah, 4x6s.
yeah, 4x6.
Well,
4x6.
probably that's on the west side of town, would you say?
Schaffnacker in the background.
Yes.
Yeah, Chapel side. That's a nice picture for the book too.
Yes.
Is that a sign up here to the top right, you think?
Yeah, it is.
Yes.
Yeah, I wonder what it
And
says.
I enlarged that.
Yeah.
Never could read it.
Huh.
Where is this?
Mary and Marvin Miller's house. I can tell. Up above,
Behind Moss Rock.
Yes.
Moss Rock.
Marvin and Mary Miller had that house.
Okay, this was Frank Kerns' house. I think it was built about 1900. Frank moved to Kansas. He was going to leave this area, and after spending about 10 or 12 years there, the farmer he was working for was elected to Congress, and Frank had heard about the tannery business here, and he decided to come on back. He didn't like Kansas. And he had about 7 children. One was Iva. Iva married John Smith, and she had an older sister, Ruth, who married a Townsend. They were school teachers back in the day. And
How were they related to you? Were they related to you?
they're related to me, yes.
Yes, sir.
Yes, they are. And Frank's father was a judge in Frederick County. Vanessa Alger, does anyone know Vanessa? No one seems to know her. Okay. She lives in Augusta. She's great-granddaughter of this Kerns. And I think she was a Kerns. Okay. Iced over. You won't see that very often, the extent of the ice. You can see the bridge way down there. And here's the second bridge again. That's about 1907 or 8. The same Ward family on the bridge. Now that looks like a very short bridge, but it's much longer than it looks.
Yes.
Yeah. See the wagon wheels and the horse
Wagon
manure?
wheels.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the horse piles there
See
on
the
the
wagon wheels here going in?
wharf.
And the horse manure right there in the middle?
What's on the right? What
Is
the
it the
building?
River House?
No, that was, we think that was the Giffens store.
Store.
It's got a big steeple on it.
So
though.
Shirley, look at the angle of that bridge. I guess later on they maybe cocked it to the left a little bit. They had to, didn't they?
Yes, had to, because it would.
It would never run
Yeah.
right into the building, yeah.
While we're on that photograph, Mr. Kerns, the far right structure, the building,
Yeah,
and I've always heard it was a telephone office at one time, or a switchboard office. Was a house that sits behind the library here. It was a two-story white house when we first moved here. And Mary O'Malley lived there for a while.
Really?
And we've always heard it was a switchboard office there. Have you heard that?
I got a story on that.
Do
My
you?
dad told me.
Okay.
My grandfather, it was like an answering service for him. He would go to Winchester, and whoever the lady was that worked the switchboard said, "Will you catch my calls for me?" Well, it was all party line.
Yes.
So when the funeral home phone would ring, everybody else would pick up. And somebody went to Winchester and said, "VA, you need to get home. You just got a death call."
Well, I've heard that too.
Yeah.
I did. And of course, you know,
'Cause
that
They heard on the party line. Somebody went and run into my grandfather and said, "You need to get home," because they picked up the phone.
Surely wasn't that Ruth Whitlock that had that?
Ruth Whitlock.
Ruth
That's
Whitlock.
correct. Yes. Yes.
Was it Ruth and maybe her mother or not?
It would have to be her mother, and then
Yes,
Ruth
yeah.
had it too, because that's an old house.
Back then they had them old wind-up phones,
Right.
and she'd get on there, I'd get on as a kid, I'd
Shoot
say,
it
this
on
little
the short
wind
or
up.
something like
Yes.
that.
And she'd say, get off that phone,
Tripple.
Ronnie.
So Charlie, that's one of those stories I got to record.
Absolutely right.
He was telling me this afternoon I need to do that.
Exactly. This-
all right, this is not a postcard picture. Very few are postcard pictures. Capon Bridge, West Virginia. And look over on the left side, the same person wrote GW, Gertrude Ward.
Yeah.
And she left her mark on one of the pictures. And when people steal them and put them up as their own on Facebook,
You know.
I've got them. Where'd you get that picture?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's the marching band.
All right, here's the bridge again, but we have the Capon Bridge Marching Brass Band.
I don't think I knew about that.
Brass?
I wonder who some of the people were in it, you know?
Got that right?
Yeah.
Samuel Cooper was in it. I know, I have some little blurb of information about that.
The Shaftmakers were part of it.
Yeah. Cornet band.
Huh.
Yeah.
Now, Brenda, about what year would that be?
Jerry, I don't know.
They had the band back in
1880. Without
Did they?
looking for
Okay.
that piece of information.
Yeah.
What did you say, Sue? What year?
1884, I seen it in those notes of Debbie's.
Yeah.
The brass bands were very popular in the late 1800s, 1890s, and the first quarter of the 20th century. Almost every community had a brass band. Highview had one, Wilmer, Capon Bridge.
Levels.
My grandfather played in one over in Whitaker. So they were popular back then. And my dad played in one. And he played trombone. And I succeeded him with the trombone when he dropped out in a brass band. Hinton, Virginia was ours, and then I went in the Navy, and they disbanded. You don't see brass bands anymore. in
Is that bridge
communities.
number 2, Brenda?
Pardon?
Is that bridge number 2?
Uh-huh. It is.
Okay.
So I have a question. Are they one lane or two? those bridges
One
back
lane.
then?
One
Were they
lane.
one lane or two?
One lane.
One lane, and that's why, with the development of US 50 and automobiles needing to pass, that's why they did the 1933 bridge.
Gotcha.
That was the necessity for
Yeah.
widening it up, widening it.
Uh-huh.
And that's the main thing they did, was made a wider bridge, and the bridges look very much alike. Okay, this, all right, would somebody read what Gertrude typed on here?
The old schoolhouse on the hill where we were taught reading, writing, and arithmetic by the tune of the hickory stick. Also attended by my mother and her sisters and brothers.
Where was it?
So,
Where was it?
This has, is that?
been gone a long
Miss Mattie
time.
Pugh taught there, yeah. It was up on the hill there near Moss Rock.
Yeah.
What's it
Where
say in
that-
the picture? The old schoolhouse on the hill.
On the hill. Yeah.
I think it's behind
Oh,
that.
see
On the
that?
hill.
That was a 4-room schoolhouse, I think.
I don't think it's on the same side as
talk
the
now.
Christian church. It's on the other side of the hill. There's a house there.
Okay, I wish I knew where it was and when it was destroyed.
No, it was near that.
Yes, right there.
Yeah.
See over there? I
Uh-huh.
think that's where.
There's the normal school.
Yeah.
It's across the road, Mr. Kerns, up on the hill, you know? Oh,
What?
it's across the road, up on the hill from the Norm School. Is that correct? The 4-room school up on the hill?
Oh,
About where Cliff
probably.
Spaltz's
I wouldn't
house
be
is.
surprised.
Up in that
Yeah.
area.
Probably so. All right, here's a 3-story structure that housed as dormitories for first an academy, like secondary school we know today, and then the Norm, as we know today, is university. It was a teacher's college. Byron Sand was the principal, headmaster. He was a grandson of Reverend Christy Sand. When Capon Bridge became a town, their offices were located here in 1901. The seeds for the Christian church were laid here. Potential members met in hopes of building a church, of which the Christian church was built. I wish I knew what year. If I was younger, I would read the Hampshire Review and piece together the history on this and what happened to the building. That's a nice building. I don't think you'd want to tear it down to build a church. I don't think so. That housed so many functions. I would assume it burned, but I don't have that information. Any questions or comments on this?
Maybe we could find out. What was the name
We'll
of the
look
church?
into that, Mr. Kearns, maybe we can find out, maybe we can find out what happened.
Okay, all right, and as I mentioned in a previous session, I do have a list of all the students who were studying to become teachers in Hampshire and adjoining counties. And here is Professor Sine and his wife Annie Kerns and their son Paul, who died young of some childhood disease. Okay.
It's a pretty picture.
I took this from the angle of that's the run that Dillon's run
That one's fine.
flowing into the river. That's a different angle from the bridge. I took that in 2004 thinking we'd put that in the book. I don't think we did. Next. And that's another 2004 from a different angle. I think they just renovated that. At one time, the bridge would not allow two trucks to be on at the same time, and they had to strengthen it.
Yes, and it was painted blue for a while.
Yes, it was.
All right, this is 1945, Capon Bridge coming in from the west.
I'm sorry.
1945, you can see the row houses. And then in 1985, on the next one, Warren Dulier took a picture, and it's the same. Everything looks the same. The bank, except there are trees on this one. The other one might have been winter.
The steeple's gone from the
Well,
Presbyterian church. The steeple's gone from the Presbyterian.
Yeah, the people changed in 40 years. Go back one. See it?
Yeah.
Pretty much the same. You don't have the trees on this one that you do in 85.
Well, they're not nearly as big.
No.
Now I got a question real quick. Brenda or Shirley, the property to the left, was that the Lovitz years ago too, or somebody else?
That's what we're kind of looking at. We're trying to trace back the house that was right next to the Methodist church. We don't know a lot about that, but I'm thinking the house that we're looking at is Jenny and Bob's house.
Okay.
The white one on the end.
Yeah.
I read about it, and it was Mr. and Mrs. Zepp built that. The Zepps built it.
Then there was the house that where the Methodist Church parking lot is, where Joe Boone's parents lived, and the company store, Capon Supply, was also in that lineup. It was closer to Bobby and Jenny's house.
Yes, I think that's the first building.
Yeah,
down
I think
from the
that's what
White
we
House
see.
is the company store.
Yeah.
Here's another picture.
Well, the steeple's still on the Presbyterian church on that one.
And that other building was.
Winter Wonderland. Now, when you put these pictures together and compare them, what's the difference between the 1933 and the 1897? There's kind of like a board on one of them that's kind of like a shield. If a car hit it, would bounce off like
guardrail, kind of like a guardrail.
Yeah, kind of like a guardrail. Looks like it's heavy wooden piece of lumber. But I think you'll be able to figure out which year the bridges were once you print this out or compare them one-on-one. Okay, we've seen that one. I like this one. That's the west side of town, the curve coming in where the Liberty Station is on the left.
Now, Mr. Kerns, there's the house on the left that we were speaking of, that it looks like a two-story porch on the left, and that's, of course, it's gone. That was, we defined it as the Wolford, Connor and Wolford built that house.
It used to be Whitaker Store at the intersection of
That could
Christian
be.
Church Road on
Yeah.
a little further along.
I don't understand.
The first house now is brick, isn't it?
Yes, after the store. It's a little small brick house.
After the store. Now, who lived there?
Larrick's. Larrick's built that house. Guy Larrick and Violet Larrick that run the garage for a while.
He had the Ford dealership.
I used to visit a lady there doing research. I can't think of her name. Her sister was Velma Peters of Kirby.
That was my mother.
What?
That was my mother, Elma. Yes,
Elva Giffen.
That was his mother.
Elva Giffen. Who did you say you visited? Vilma Peters?
Vilma Peters.
Vilma Peters.
Vilma Peters.
Oh,
That was his
the
sister.
But it was her
There's John's
sister
I
that
see.
lived there.
So it's Ron.
It's in one of my books. Anyway,
Yeah. Ronnie's
Okay.
mother.
It's Ronnie's mother, Ronnie Giffen's mother is who that was, right, Ronnie?
Yeah, they
Yes.
had the restaurant there.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah.
This is a letter written by James Cody, 1854, North River Mills. Before the Civil War. I thought it was interesting. It's kind of a business letter. I'll just leave it. We're not going to read it. Yeah, James Cody, 1854.
I see Offutt there.
He was writing to William Nixon about some business proposition.
Now, James Cody, was that the Cody's Castle? Down
Well,
Wilmer?
that same family, he would. This one would be a grandson or
Gotcha.
a grandson of the first James Cody.
Uh-huh.
Now there's that house that. supposed to
That's
have been the one that was
Evan Cody's house. Montague said was the oldest house in Capon Bridge, and we talked about that this morning. I think Brenda had a picture of it. Okay. And that's the James Cody house. He called it Hartford Beale House.
That's the same house
oh,
we were
yeah.
just looking at?
That's where Wayne Moreland is.
Yes.
now.
Buffalo Farm, yeah.
That's a nice picture. Logs
Yeah.
beneath. And that house is located, if you look at the land grant, they used to make a little rectangle on where the house was. Now, it wasn't perfect, but it gave an idea of whether it was in the middle of the grant or on one of the edges. And that house is located on the grant just about in the middle of Cody's grant, and that was probably the site of James Cody's house. This is the most valuable picture that I've collected. Here's the original covered bridge. Oh, do we have?
That's your cover photo.
Do we have the blueprint of it? You don't have to get it right now, but for those who want to see.
The grid, yes, we brought it.
Yeah, it's back there.
Yeah, well, when the lights come on. we'll
When the
see.
lights come on later, for those of you who want to see it, I ordered a copy of the blueprint of this bridge, and it matches what you see there and what you'll see on the next picture. It's huge. They had to map it in sections and send it outside of the Library of Virginia in Richmond. They will no longer do that. They won't let their original records go out, but I did this 40 years ago, and they're more lax in, but I feel very fortunate that we have a copy of the original blueprint that's going to stay here with the library, or however.
So is this looking downstream again?
Yeah. Oh, wait a minute, let's see. I think it's looking
Upstream?
upstream.
Okay.
I think so.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. Yeah.
Now, see the mountain on the right. Somebody called it Capon Mountain? Or did I hear somebody call that Capon Mountain today? When Crozet did the soil testing and mapping of a proposed Northwest Turnpike, he said avoid this mountain because it is solid stone. It's a solid rock with like an inch of soil, and you'll never get through it. So the road was taken up through Schaffnicker's Mountain. That's a very interesting and valuable picture, and I have a copy of the original. A lot of people have copied this. Next. Here's the inside. A two-seater buggy, which used to be very popular. Now I think you find them only in museums. The Mennonites used to drive them.
I thought at one time you thought that was not the bridge.
Well, look at the blueprint. And Brenda defied me in the last meeting. And I got to thinking about it, and I think she's right on this.
Then that bow that runs from end to end is not seen from the inside of the bridge.
Go back one and you'll see that bow on the overall bridge. Go back to the bridge.
It don't look as long.
I can't get it to go back.
Margaret
Back up
Riley
one.
gave me that picture.
There it is, there it is. Just hit the arrow.
Yeah, but go back one to the bridge. Now, see the bow?
Now, okay, where is it on the next picture? Do you see it?
I think it's
inside
an
the bridge or-
optical illusion.
Yeah, I see it.
Tell me where it is.
Yeah.
On
Look at
the
the,
bow
look
is
at
on
the entrance and the
floor,
truss work.
not on the ceiling.
No, go back. Go back. It's right in the middle where the horse's head is.
Oh, that's on the outside. Yeah.
So you don't see it then at all from the inside. It doesn't attach to those beams?
I'm still open on this, but I lean with Brenda at this point.
Because I think that bow has to attach to those struts that we see.
Well,
Also, the
You
light
think we
at the
should,
top doesn't seem to be as wide
eliminate this.
I think we should
on that as it does the previous. Look at those little sides of those windows at the top. And then look, is that just the illusion of the angle of the picture?
They look smaller in this one.
Right,
Yeah.
that's my point.
Yep.
Yeah,
No, I don't think it is.
yeah.
Okay, I respect your opinion.
It's only an opinion. It's an opinion.
It's just an
I've been on both sides.
Because you were the one who told me recently you didn't think it was.
Well, that's what I said the last time I was here. And then Brenda was quite sure, and I studied it. It could be.
Most of us knew Hollis Riley, and that is supposed to be Hollis's aunt in the buggy. And if you remember, Hollis's mother was a Monroe, Margaret Monroe.
Well, we need to get the blueprints out.
Okay.
We'll vote later.
Yeah.
1896 torn down. This is the first covered bridge at Capon Bridge, built 1830. That's a mistake, the date. And had to be blasted down with powder in 1896. Verified by Samuel L. Hyatt, deceased, W.O. Nixon, these are old people, deceased, and G.K. Hunt.
Okay, now, where is this attached? This narrative, what's it attached to? Is it a plain piece of paper by itself?
Yeah, it was taped on the picture.
Which picture?
On the back.
Which picture?
The picture of the bridge, the first picture you saw on the
First picture, okay.
the
not
covered
horse
bridge.
covered, huh?
Those two went together.
Okay.
This is the property of B.F. Slane.
What was the date? 1830 wasn't right. What was the date?
It says built 1830, taken down in 1896. Over here in the corner, it's written in pencil, looks like 1897 up along the side.
Yeah. But 1830 was the correct date for building.
Do you know what the
I don't
date
know.
of the blueprint is?
I don't know. We'll look when they bring it up. Or as soon as.
1830 is what I've always seen, read, heard.
All right, that's one of the most important things that I have to offer. And I think it's one of the most important things for the book. The bridge is really the icon for the community, and it might be a good idea to put the bridge on the cover as a good picture of the bridge as the icon. Whatever you
We thought
say.
about that, maybe the first one today, or, you know, we thought about maybe doing a collage of all, you know, of all the bridges. We haven't got there yet, but I think that's our thinking as well. That's the whole point of the bridge, the whole, you know, Capon Bridge.
Okay, next. Now we're talking about this kind of two-seater buggy. Here's another example. This is Reverend Bill from the Union Christian Church over near Slanesville. You know where that is. And that's not far from Union Christian Church. But it's a convertible. Look, they're enjoying an afternoon ride. Next.
Now, how was that Bill Maurer's name spelled?
What?
Bill Meyer.
How do you spell
Was
it?
that Meyer or Maurer?
It's Villmeyer.
Yes.
Y-E-R, thank you.
Meyer.
All right, here's another two-seater buggy, convertible top and back, and I think you recognize where this is. Now, I should point out, this is before Route 50 came into existence. See the turnpike fence there?
The porch is still kind of the same, because I have to paint that.
So this was before 1918. How much before, I don't know.
Little first-hand experience.
Yeah. Get a lot of spiders up in there.
Oh, I received this picture many years ago from John Hinkle. His mother was a Mosee. And I've forgotten who's in the buggy, that's not that important. But the value of it is that there's the Giffen Funeral Home. Amos L. Pugh's residence. We mentioned Amos Pugh this morning. Did you know he was a 7-time sheriff of Hampshire County? Also, 7 times he was elected sheriff.
What would have been the term?
What?
What would have been how long would the term have been? How many years would that have been?
Well, it's a 4-year term.
I'm not
now.
sure, at least 2 years. So at least 14 years he served as sheriff, maybe 28. Who knows?
Just think the trip he had to go to the courthouse.
Well, that's another picture of the Capon Bridge High School. That's not a good one. I'll have that deleted. Here we have the row houses before they'd been painted. This looks like a very 1890 or so. What are the horses pulling there?
Doesn't
like
look good to me.
Look like a wagon.
Hides, maybe?
Yeah, it could be nice.
Sled.
Yeah.
Are those mules?
I'd say it looks like it's kind of like in the Methodist Church parking lot now, would you think? Facing that direction?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a nice picture.
So they're headed east?
Correct. They're headed west,
Headed west.
heading up the hill.
Yeah, that's right. And it's a good picture of the row houses.
If you look over the top of the courthouse, you see the highway going right there.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Oh, yeah, I see it.
Now, that's
There's the tannery.
Here's one picture of the tannery, which was located behind the row houses.
Yeah. See the steeples of the church?
Yeah, you see the steeples of the
Yeah.
church. Now there's another picture of the tannery where it was expanded, much larger than that. The building on the left center was double the size.
It said in that book that it was made out of bricks and iron. So that would have been.
There had to be some unpleasant smells associated with that.
Horrible, I've been around 10 years.
there's an issue we might as well take up here, Shirley. We talked about in our last meeting, what caused the tannery to cease operation, and we thought it was a fire in 1915 that burned the forest. I went on the census and looked at the number of people employed in the tannery business, and almost 3/4 of the people in town seem to be occupation tannery. Xerox from the 1910 census, and I'll pass those around. You can keep them. I don't need them because I can go back online and get copies of them. And then in 1920, there weren't very many tannery workers, and we thought it was attributed to the forest fire. But since I was here the last time, I looked in my Kerns book and found a letter, 1895, that describes the fire that I've got a picture of that says 1915. So we're going to have to think about that some more as to what happened to the tannery business.
Ran out of bark.
Well,
I don't know where I read it. I did read it.
Yeah, they ran out.
Running out of bark.
Okay. And what year did it close down? I wonder.
I wish I could tell you.
What?
I was not there.
It might have had something to do with their finished product too. Maybe leather wasn't so much in demand anymore.
Leather was not in demand as much because we're into the automobile stage. We don't need as many bridles and saddles and harnesses. Yeah, you're right.
Don't need as many shoes either if you're not walking anymore and you're riding.
And shoes at that point. Okay. All right, here's the forest fire. That's Sandy Ridge on the left side, coming down to the Capon River, which flows between the two mountains. That's Tinkling Springs at the foot of Sandy Ridge. Does anyone know where that is? Next to the river? Tinkling Springs?
Yeah.
Steve does.
Yeah, what, halfway to the 29 bridge, 127?
Something like that.
The way I found it, Dolly Mance had the key to the private property, and she took me down there. You know where Merle and Dolly
Sharp turn.
live?
Yeah.
Go down to the river on a dirt road, and it brings you out to that spot.
Yeah.
Now on the right-hand side is White Rock Mountain. It's on the map. And the left side, that's the beginning of Sandy Ridge. As you see, smoke is still hovering, and you see the stubs of the trees pretty much wiped out. According to this letter, it said for 3 miles, and a deaf man wrote the letter. His name was Keplinger, and his wife was deaf also, and he said, someone stole the bark and set fire to the leaves to cover up the crime. And it put them out of business. They lost 3 houses. If you look in the Kerns book, you'll see that letter. It's about 3 pages long, and he told all the business about who the drunks were falling into the river, who was stealing from whom, and even in one letter he was describing who was having abortions. I hid that letter because when I received these letters from Daisy Anderson, she was a Kerns, had a daughter named Oates that lived in Romney, And Daisy gave those letters to me, and as I read through them, some of the people he was talking about were still living then, in 40 or 50 years ago. So I held them back and just published the better letters.
So, Mr. Kerns, you said something about Dolly Mann's. The house right down the road from her, where Jean Lang lived, that road went from there back to the river. I got a story on that one too. Back in the 70s, there was a family that had, across the river at Bloomery, had a private property and they buried one of their loved ones there. And we got the call to take care of this end. Randy Slonaker, Randy Myrie, and myself went in that road, took a boat, crossed the river, and dug that grave over there on the other side when I was a teenager.
On the right side near White Rock?
Well, we go down below Dolly's house, there's a road right there.
Little valley.
We went to the river, and then we took shovels and everything with us and crossed the river in a boat, and the three of us dug a grave over there on the Bloomery side.
Well, when I was there, like 40 years ago, there was a veteran who had just been buried on this side of the river.
Is that right?
Yeah, I was really surprised that he would be buried up on the ridge.
So on the other side, how we entered with the casket was Glenwood Johnson's property.
Yeah, okay. Boy, that's something.
Yeah.
Huh.
Took 2 days to dig that grave because it was really hard digging.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah, I said, I'm not paying anybody else to do it. You three boys could take it.
Okay, here's row house, part of the row houses, and these are tannery workers and their families. That's it. I like to think in terms of who gave me a picture and what's the history of the picture. This one came from a Dr. Davis, professor at Eastern Kentucky University, and he sent it to me for identification. This and a lot of other pictures. He said, my mother was an April and grew up in Capon Bridge, and she's not living now. I'm going through her things. So that's how I got that picture. But I'm almost sure those are the row houses, right?
Yeah.
And then the other picture he had, the row houses were under construction. And the porch just had some rafters that they were standing on. Okay. All right, we talked earlier about Evan Hyatt. This is his cemetery, the Hyatt Kogel Cemetery on top of Sandy Bridge. In the background is the house of John Whitaker, who owned the land. He gave me permission to copy the tombstones there. And I waited a couple of years and came back and found all the tombstones on the ground. The cattle had been let in, and all the tombstones were broken. Some of those are late 1700s. And Dulier was with me to photograph this, and John came out and saw Dulier, and he knew that Dulier wrote some unpleasant things when he found a problem, and Dulier was not planning on exposing cattle breaching the cemetery, but John was very upset, and he said, would you leave and never come back on my property? So much for that.
That's where my father and I hunted, on John Whitaker's property.
The roadbed for the for the Colonial Road is very visible. You can see the indentation.
Huh. how far from Coldstream Road?
How far from Coldstream?
Is
Well,
it close to the cemetery there?
This is just down over the hill from the top.
I know where the cemetery is, the Wagon Road.
Oh, the Wagon Road. The tracks are easily traced
Yeah.
going up Sandy Ridge and on the other side over to Timber Mountain.
Okay.
But Evan Hyde was an early Quaker preacher, and Wilmer Kerns and Bud Shanholz are descendants of him.
Huh.
Okay. That's an interesting church. It has two entrances. It's a Presbyterian church at Three Churches. And we took that picture in the rain. I held the umbrella while Twoseater took it. Why did they have two entrances? One for men, one for women?
Yes, yes.
And a divider
Some of
down
the
the
early
middle.
churches have the divider in the middle. Shiloh Church does.
And the,
One for
Yeah,
one.
exactly. At Bethel, our church is like that.
That's
I mean, one, but we have a divider down the middle. A vestibule with the divider down the middle. Yeah, because the men had to sit on one side and the women on the other.
and the slaves in the balcony.
Yeah.
Okay, next. This is a famous picture by Twoseater. We've seen that printed
Yep.
Brendan
in
knows where that is.
newspapers. That's a lovely picture.
It looks much like that today, except the bushes are bigger.
Oh, it's pretty.
I took that of, does anybody know what that is?
Island Hill.
Island Hill, boy,
Yes,
you're
yes.
getting everything right.
Methodist Church.
Been there, done that.
Island
I
Hill
was just there a couple years
Methodist
ago.
It's over at the Forks of Capon, right, Judy?
Yes.
Okay,
Across from all the Hyatts where they all grew up.
Yeah.
how about that one?
There's something primitive.
Primitive Baptist Church, it's on, it's almost right by the upper Little Capon River.
Yeah.
That's right, that's the Little Capon Primitive Baptist Church. And I used to visit Elder Douglas Hare, who lived near Hampshire High School. He was the elder there, and they believe in 5-point Calvinism. I mean, that you're predestinated one way or the other.
Right.
I mean, real strict. They didn't believe in Sunday schools or missionaries. Very, very, very different doctrine from the average church today. There are not many primitive Baptist churches left. Very small congregation. They only meet once a month if they're still meeting at all. But it's an interesting part of our history.
Yes.
Hampshire County did a church history for the entire county. Those are all in the library in Romney. Write-ups on each church if they submitted them. I've got them scanned, so if you need anything.
This is the Capon Bridge Methodist Church.
Yes.
Yeah.
Boy, I've never seen that fence.
That's the turnpike.
What age do you think this was? Yeah. You see a wagon in front of the Methodist Church in Capon Bridge. There's a rock
Early
wall.
1800s probably,
Well,
you think?
it wasn't it built around 1890? I might be wrong about that, but I was thinking it was.
Boy, you didn't have any trees.
Well, those two trees have been cut down since. They were huge when I was a child.
Yes.
And they look like fairly new trees now. And I don't believe the stained glass windows are in the church that are there now.
Would you say 1890s?
In Historic Hampshire, he gives a date of the Capon Bridge Methodist Church. I'm thinking it was 1890, but I might not be remembering correctly.
And those fences, we have a picture of the Amos Pew House where we are, and
Yes.
there was a fence around that.
There's a fence around.
Everybody's, yeah, on 50. Because I heard the story this afternoon, and they herd the cattle down through the middle, and that's why they had fences up.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I'll have to paint that one. Yeah.
Timber Ridge Christian Church.
Yeah.
That's
United Church of Christ now.
They've actually changed.
That was Reverend Christy Symes' church, and he's buried there. After the lights are turned on, I want to show you a copy of the book that Dan and I are working on, the journal of Reverend Christy Symes, about early 1820s to almost 1830, and it gives you a window of what life is like for a minister day by day. I think he talked about the weather and snow and other things that aren't that boring, but I was interested in the meeting houses being multifunctional, being the church and the school at the same time.
Isn't he buried to the left of the church? I think I've seen his
He's
tombstone.
buried there, yes.
Yes, I've seen that stone there.
Dr. Kerns, that's the second, because that's the brick that's there now,
Yeah,
but
before.
they had a stick-built church there first,
Yeah.
and it burned.
Down in the field, further?
I'm
behind?
not sure, I think
Yeah.
it was close to the same location.
Yeah, I think it was down in the field to the left of that.
And I know Ray Brill and his wife Margaret gave me a little information about it because they attended that church, and Ray said the timber for the first church was furnished by Captain David Pugh.
Yeah. Brenda, you were right, it's 1890.
Okay.
She's amazing.
Yes.
Girl.
So where's this
I
building?
can only remember useless information.
This house is
But you're really good at that.
Can't remember what you had for breakfast.
This house was on Coldstream Road. The last family to live in it was Belford. And Audrey Baker grew up with some of these Belford children. I don't know when the house was torn down, but it belonged to Jacob Cooper. There's the Cooper name again. It was on the right-hand side going up Coldstream Road, right before he started going up a hill.
Which hill?
I don't know if that's not before my time, but I never went by there.
It's right after
Oh.
the veterinarians.
The Frog Hollow?
Oh, it was right on the
That's
turn.
not Pap Swisher's house.
You
No.
mean by the veterinary? Right over there?
Yes, you start
Right
out,
on
it was on the
Spade.
right.
Oh.
Charlie, it's
Right on 50, you remember Jerry, you know where it is.
Where?
It was right past the veterinarians, after you pass and go around the turn, it was right there.
Where Harry Starr lived.
Where Harry Starr lived.
do you remember that building?
I do. If it's yeah, that's the same one.
Yeah.
Of course, it looks a little different from this angle, but it was right along the Coldstream River.
Here's the Capon Bridge Symphony. Really? And I think that's in Moss Can, I'm not sure, but I believe it is.
Wow.
And I can't identify anyone there.
About what year?
I don't know, can we tell from the clothes? It came from the Ward family.
Because
There were Wards and Coopers and Nixons in the band.
Kind of looks like inside the Presbyterian church,
Could be.
you know?
Hmm. You mean the Roritan Center? Is that
Yeah.
I don't,
Yes.
I don't know
That's the
how
old
long they
Presbyterian
operated.
church,
I've never heard of it before
Yeah, I don't know.
this picture was explained to me.
What do you mean about that?
what's written on the bottom left? Bertha?
See, there's an air coming down on the left side of the flag that points to a man.
You all would know.
What does it say?
It looks like a W and an N up the top there, coming from that, above that area. William Nixon, maybe?
Because those churches were in town for years and years, you know.
Nixon or Nelson?
Nixon.
That's not the old school stage?
No.
It's a rounded.
It's not very wide, that's why I'm just thinking it's senior center.
Oh. That's
The old post office.
Yeah, Gertrude.
And store.
Is that her there? Is that Gertrude Water standing there?
What?
She used to be a postmaster, Gertrude did. Would that be her standing there?
I'm not sure. Look at the cars. I don't believe it is.
That's too tall for
Yeah,
her.
she's too, yeah.
I don't think so.
She was pretty short.
Those are very old cars. What are they? Model A's?
Y'all don't remember when post office used to be there, do y'all?
20s.
They're due to, what, been there, what, 25 years now?
And what, the tree that Gertrude wouldn't let them
Right
cut
there it
down?
is, right there it is.
Yeah.
And to build a block, or rock wall around it.
Yes,
Right to the
Move
corner.
it. You had to move the bridge over to save the tree.
yeah. And you see the store building over there to the left line.
Well, that was taken with a Ward camera developed in San Antonio, Texas. I can identify with that screen.
Look how high that porch is there, compared to what it was down the road. You know, it's always concrete
Level.
where that was jacked up. See, I just,
Samuel Cooper.
Right there's Samuel Cooper during his younger years.
Put it back on piers.
The only picture I know of Samuel Cooper. He was chairman of the Board of Education when the school system became public in 1870. He was surveyor, I think he was sheriff also
Yeah.
at one point, and Confederate. There you can
There's
see
your steps.
automobiles taken from another angle, the same person.
I think it's Gertrude.
I guess the stores always had their loafers, didn't they? See the men hanging around there outside?
Brenda, what do you think the other end of that was? A store then, back then too, or?
Yes, yes.
Okay,
Yeah, because Samuel Cooper's store.
Yeah.
gotcha.
And there's still men sitting on the bench.
Jerry, there was an old lady that worked with Gertrude in the post office named Leila Burkhammer. Do you remember her?
I know the name, yeah, but I don't remember.
She lived in one of the row houses up close to May Waterang.
Yes.
Karen, do you guys have pictures of that? Karen, do you guys have pictures of that?
No.
Your dad worked there?
No, because he was there very long before they built the other post office.
Oh,
He was at that one.
That's
Yeah, he was
right.
at that one for a short time, but then
Yeah.
it wasn't long until they started building the other one over
Yeah.
there.
That's right, your dad was, I remember.
On this end.
How long did he have that job?
I couldn't even tell, well, he died in 73.
Died in 73.
Probably there about 5 years, maybe 6.
Back when we were in high school.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, is that when Marvin had it?
Yeah, Mark.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I got a story about that store, if y'all want to hear it. Brother Deaver, if y'all remember that name down Coldstream, Brother Deaver, they always call him Fish for Carp. And he was down Coldstream and caught this huge carp, and I was maybe 10 years old. And he had that carp in the back of his car, and we're showing it off there at the store. And it was huge, 45, 50 inches long, maybe 15 pounds, 10 pounds. So someone was there, I remember, said, Brother Deaver, what are you going to do? How are you going to cook that fish? He says, well, I'll put a little pine board underneath of it, throw it in the oven. I said, he said, what now? He says, throw the fish away and eat the pine board. Because carps had all these kind of bones. I'll never forget that story as a kid, you know? Yeah.
Shad blackie.
Now, has the store been lowered? Has the store been lowered?
It was moved.
It was moved back when they widened the highway.
Yes, that's it. Yeah, before Mervin had it. Yeah.
That's why it's lower.
Does that say court,
Sorry.
that was on the RC sign?
It says Coriel's.
I was gonna say, it's John H. Coryell.
John H. had it.
I thought it was Coryell.
So is that for Mervin? Or
After.
After. What's the other sign say? Underneath?
On the wall?
No, underneath RC Cola.
Is
See
it
that
a
sign
bakery?
hanging?
Oh, yeah.
Like a bread?
More like it could be just a regular bread. It could be like a bread, but it's boiled coal.
Yeah, right underneath there's something else there, yeah. And that was a kerosene pump. Right there. Yeah, they didn't sell gas, there's kerosene.
Yeah. Now, Jerry, the key to the post office, you know, the solid gold key,
Yeah.
you've heard that story, haven't you? One of the Cooper family went west and settled out there, and they took this gold key that went to the post office entrance with them. Years later, one of the descendants sent it back to Gertrude Ward, and she said she didn't want it, she didn't need it, and she gave it to the Hampshire County Historical Society. And Ray Brill built a little shadow box with Gertrude's letter behind it in the shadow box, and it's over here in the museum.
Oh, no kidding.
With the post office artifacts. And that we'd always heard about that gold key, but the key is gold collared. It's brand.
Mr. Kerns, Dolly and Merle Mance's grandson bought this building and he's restored it now. We'll have, I think, a law office there.
Right.
Is that right? Yeah. Yeah.
Well, he told me the projects that he's involved
Oh,
in.
yeah, you probably talked to him.
And that the ones that he has dreams of, he's dreaming very big. I'm rooting for him.
Yeah, he's a good kid.
He's an asset to the community.
Yeah.
People with bad backs.
All right, I was interested in this angle. The Dillon's Run, as it exits into the Capon, that's the cornerstone of the Cody Edwards land grants. That's the western cornerstone, right there.
Where?
And you see where it is in relation to the bridge.
Where? I don't see.
The bridge is over on Edwards.
The stone,
Well, it was a stone. Ricky said there's no evidence of it anymore with all the floods.
That's what I thought.
It would be a miracle if a rock could withstand that. And the stone on the east side was where Georgia's used to, when they did the renovation there, they built a road and tore it up. There's no stone there anymore. Where the Liberty Station is. There's the Edwards house, we call it. And the next one is Edwards house, about 1945, I think.
so from that chimney on to the left is gone now?
Yeah. It's in the end, the left.
Did somebody say Joe Shanholz is in that picture?
I think so.
Well, the way I got this picture, I was recruiting for the Shanholz reunion. I saw Shanholz on the mailbox over on Dillon's Run, the next house down from Bob Jordan's, and I went in and she was either a Haynes or a Whitaker, and she had these pictures of the Fort Edwards house and said, we lived there, here I am, and she's still living, the people in that picture. But she married a Shanholz, and I've forgotten their names. But there's another picture also. Go on to the next one. It was one of those two girls that gave me the picture. Sorry, I don't know their names. That's a nice picture of Thomas Edwards' house.
Is that Mark Tooley?
Mark Tooley owns that now, yeah. That's a nice one for the book too. That's a very unique picture. That's the William Edwards Cemetery, one of the oldest near Edwards Mill Run. I think the Edwards Mill was very close to this cemetery, which is in the front yard of, I've forgotten.
Sylvia Catron? Sylvia?
I believe that Edwards was born in maybe 1762. It's very old, and the inscription is still there. And that picture was taken by Doulier for one of the Advocate articles. Doulier gave me permission for the copyright on all the pictures that he took for the articles that I wrote in the Advocate. And that's one of them. Okay. This is a reunion of Foreman and Eaton's out in Frog Hollow. The graveyard is still kept up. It's got some of the old pioneers buried there. Kidwells, people born in the late 1700s.
Any Moseys there?
I don't think there are any Moseys. Have you heard of David Foreman, the orator? Montague talked about him, and I heard so much about David Foreman, the orator. There he is, all the way on the left in the back with his elbow up. That's David Foreman, the orator. And you'll see him in local history books. Who can estimate a date for this picture?
Now, you made a comment about the era of Route 50 when apparently you were indicating that all the fences disappeared. Is that correct? You think
all the fences were turnpike. Well, not that people couldn't put up fences afterwards, but the turnpikes had fences. Why? Because of the animals. The main traffic was animals. Cows, horses, hogs.
So what's that date era we're talking about?
Well, 1918 is when the act was passed for federal highways. So US 50 fell into that category. That's before 1918 because of the fence.
Where the fence is now, there is still a foundation where the fence was. It is still there. And off to the left was a playground for children, which is still partially there. I'm dying to get inside and photograph that place.
Who was the family that owned this house years ago?
Well, it's been owned by many people. I asked Debbie to bring a book by Grace Garner in which she describes James Cody owning the house. He became mentally incapacitated, and Eli Beale was the owner at that time, and James Cody, the second or third, lived up in the attic during that time. That was a family story. But after Eli Beale owned it, the next owner was Fry. F-R-Y.
Yes.
Because it's still known as the Fry. Yes.
Fry's Inn is
Yeah.
what it was called. And I think during this period, right, what you're looking at now is Fry's Inn. In fact, I'm sure it is. Okay, next one. There he is. That's Mr. Fry himself.
Now, is this Benjamin Fry?
What?
Benjamin? What's Mr. Fry's first
Not
name?
Benjamin. I would know his name if I heard it.
Hanson?
Hanson. That's Hanson Fry.
No,
Benjamin's father.
What was his wife's name? Is it Gertie?
Okay. And there's another picture with the fence.
There's a sign.
It's not quite the same era or time, but it was during the turnpike days. There was a lot of work to build a fence along the entire highway in front of Giffens and up over Bear Garden Mountain.
Yeah.
There's Mrs. Fry.
Yes, that's Jenny.
She was Smith,
Yes.
and after he died, she ran it. Montague talks about the Fry family.
She had a son named Mayo who was Gertrude Ward's love interest. And Mayo died as a young man. And Gertrude never married.
Go out that door for it.
Okay. Here's one of my favorites.
Yeah.
Sherry, do you have anything to say?
Yeah, I do. That was my dad's oldest brother, Garland. Everybody thought it was my grandfather, but that was Garland when he helped my grandfather at Trone. That's where that was. Trone, people don't know where that is, over at Gore, on 610.
Sorry.
There at the top of the mountain.
Lay down here and give them. Sorry.
Cordell
This
Watts'
side.
orchard.
Over here. Wrong one.
Right on the end, Ben. That's where your hand is there. But that was probably 1910, 1912. And we still have that sign. I have it in the funeral home.
And look at these stockings and dress.
Short pants. Yeah.
1910, and his hat.
And Wilmer, I appreciate you giving us a copy of that. That people will comment about that picture all the time.
Good night. Safe travels. Nice to meet you all.
B.A. Baxter Alexander.
Okay. This is Reverend Good, the first pastor of the Christian church. He made the transition from the old location to the new building. Sewell Good. He's in the Shanholz book. He was born out of wedlock and adopted by the Good family. Became a minister, and he wrote a history of the Christian church. You may use excerpts from that, I'm sure, for the book, because the first part of it is very, very interesting.
So, Mr. Kerns, I know my dad always talked about Reverend S.J. Good. Would that have been his son?
Yes.
Gotcha.
It was.
Yes. I never knew his name, but it was always S.J. Good. Yeah.
Jerry Capon Bridge had two Reverend Goods, a Methodist Reverend Good and a Christian church Reverend Good. And they were both here at the same time.
And he baptized up here on the river, across from where Marvin Son lived.
Yes.
In that area. Okay.
The underwater bridge, what we referred to it years ago. Yeah.
What? To Sandy Hollow?
There where Marvin Son lived, you know?
Marvin, yeah.
Right there. Yeah, on Swoops, or right there at the river. Underwater bridge. Yeah.
This said on the back, John Hook's Feed Mill. And we discussed this in length the last meeting. and decided it was located where the prior post office was, where Jill says.
Yes.
And that's Route 50, dirt road. No turnpike. So about what time period do you think that is? The next house up there is still there, but they don't have much yard. The row is on the other side of the trees, on the left, yes.
Yeah.
What's the house?
You can't see them from here.
And Methodist Church.
That's the house, I think, where Harry Richmond had lived. You remember?
Yeah.
The very first one?
I do.
Yeah, no, the second one. Right, Shirley?
Well, right after the store.
Yes,
That's
yeah.
right. Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Well, that's sometime in the 1920s, wouldn't you say? Well, it looks like we should have known somebody who
Yeah, I
remembered
think it
that.
might be earlier than that.
Yeah.
Well, the turnpike fence is gone. It's after 1918.
So this building is kind of like the parking lot of the senior center, isn't it? The first building? I don't recall that ever meant something. Because then on this side of it would be the Presbyterian church, yeah.
And it was built in 1890.
And you've got telephone poles. Dan Oates, you've done research on telephones companies. Okay. That's Hook's Mill with the new addition that Roberta, yeah, Monsky. I took that picture. Okay.
Hook's Mill again, Shoemaker House.
Wish it still looked like that.
Yeah.
That's over on Route 50, the corner of Smoky Hollow.
Smoky
Yeah.
Hollow Road.
There were 3 or 4 of those houses built the same porches, same columns.
Two families lived in this, the Shoemaker and the Websters.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's part of a Bible record from Wanda Riley. She had lots of records and antiques. And I'm sorry she left us so early because I wanted to go back and take more pictures and things.
Hollis's wife, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
She's the one that gave me the picture of the woman in the buggy on the bridge.
Oh, okay.
Oh, I remember that.
That was Abraham Cackley's house. The graveyard is across the road, many unmarked graves. And I'm sure everybody has seen that.
It's still standing.
Route 50.
Route 50.
No, it's all right along Route 50.
Route 50 and
Before you
edge
get
of
to
the
Bear,
woods.
East of
Bear
Capon
Garden,
Bridge.
yeah. And I think they restored it, some haven't they?
At one time they were working, and
Yeah.
then they stopped, and it's just
I
sat.
think Mitchell Clark and his son owned that.
Yeah.
That's where Christy Sign stayed,
Many nights.
and he married Abraham's daughter.
He was there many nights.
Many nights.
Wherever he was, he walked
married.
he walked 7 miles back to get to that house.
Now, that window on the left,
She
there's
must
a
have been
store
a-
there, I understand. A store. I stopped there many, many years ago when they were beginning to do a little restoration, and that's the story that the gentleman told me. And then, since then, no work has been done, it's just been sitting there.
Yeah.
Well, I stopped there about 40 years ago and went in the back. There's an extension looking for old newspapers or something of it, historical interest. Didn't find anything. There were a few newspapers, but not of interest. Here's another old house along the Capon River, down the road from the Manses. That's Elizabeth Hott sitting there. And the river is right below that bit. The house was probably washed away, but that's an old house.
Yeah, what was the family? Did you say the name?
Hot?
That was Elizabeth Hott. Her maiden name was Kerns. It's located at Tinkling Springs, at the end of Sandy Ridge, where we saw a picture of a forest fire.
And it's on the Sandy Ridge side or across?
Sandy Ridge side.
Ah.
But that house was long gone before I was born. That's an old picture.
Okay.
This is Captain John Largent,
Looks like a captain.
son of Lewis Largent of the Forks of Capon. There were numerous John Largents born about the same time. He was born in 1793, and there was one John Largent called Big Neck.
Big neck.
Because he had a big neck. This was Captain. He served in the War of 1812. I donated a dozen or more copies of Largent research that was done by a lady out in Utah, and I helped her for many years, copied many records out of the county courthouse in Romney. It's the most extensive research on the Largent family. They came to Orange County, Virginia, so that was very early. In the Shenandoah Valley, later it became Frederick. Then the Largents moved over to Hampshire County in the late 1700s, bought the land where the Crossings is now. I like that picture of the horse and old John Largent. I thought about giving these records to the Virginia Historical Library or a big institution, but since the Largents were an important family in Capon Valley, in fact there's a Largent, West Virginia. There's a story when President Lyndon Johnson passed the legislation on the poverty program. He wanted to demonstrate, go to Appalachia and for CBS and the networks to follow him and show how this new program, the poverty program in 1965, was really going to help people. And he went to Largent, West Virginia. I saw this on TV. And he interviewed a farmer, the most wealthy farmer there. And nobody knew any different. I mean, the national audience did.
About 100 miles short.
But I did.
You mean none of the locals ever heard about that offer? Is that what you're saying?
Now, Largent, West Virginia was named, 3 names were dropped in a hat. The mayor of Berkeley Springs, the mayor of Paw Paw, and the mayor of anyway, the mayor of one of the towns, Paw Paw I guess was named Largent, and they were going to name the community, the town, the post office after the name of that mayor whose name was picked out of the hat. And Mr. Largent of Paw Paw got it, and that's how Largent, West Virginia got its name. Well, I'm diverting a little bit here, but That's interesting. Okay. Here's a well-known picture. I've posted and published this several times. This was Shanholt's family over, I don't know if it's on Saul Shanholt's Road or it's near the Martinsburg grade out from Augusta.
That's fiddle.
It's a good example of pioneer log house. The last person born in that house was Hazel Iser. She's 91 years old and lives not too far from here. She came to our reunion and told about being born and raised there in the poverty. You notice a horse. In those days, they brought their animals, their horses and dogs, into the pictures. The man on the left is playing a fiddle. That's Minor Shanholtz. The other two people are Shanholtzes.
Wilmer, is this on the land? You said it could be on Saul Shanholtz Road. Would this be on the land that is now owned by Gene Wofford?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear that.
Oh, I'm sorry. Is this, you said this it might be on Saul Shanholtz Road?
It's been so long since I've been there that I can't remember. It's a cinder. The only thing left now is a cinder block chimney, and just the shell. All the roof and everything is gone. But when I saw it, it was kind of like it is there, except it had a cinder block chimney. I think it's a classic picture.
It is.
Yeah.
I'll go to the next one.
Taking it, oh, that's the list of the students on the schoolhouse.
Here we have Capon Bridge School.
That's a great picture.
And I think Gertrude Ward is in there. See the teacher on the left? That's Howard Mosey.
Yes.
And I recognize Howard every time I see him in many pictures. He was jack of all trades in Capon Bridge.
Do you know which one's Gertrude?
What?
Wonder which one is Gertrude. She had pointed out to her which one she is.
I'll go back to the names.
Yeah.
See if you can.
Back to put that back 1 minute.
Back row, back to the left.
Yeah. I wrote an article on Howard Mosey, published it in the West Virginia Advocate. Someone picked up a copy and gave it to Howard's daughter, 90-some-year-old daughter in Pennsylvania. And I had a phone call. You wrote about my father. What's your connection? Why are you writing about him? I'm so pleased and impressed. Could I meet you? And her granddaughter drove her down from Pennsylvania, spent an afternoon in Arlington. This has been many years ago. And she told me many stories. I had lots of questions, and I didn't take any notes, and my mind is kind of blank on some of the things she said. But I did ask her, where did you live in Capon Bridge? And she said across from the, let's say, the Merv Wolford store. And that was a building that burned, but we discussed this the last time. Where would Howard have?
I think it would have been the Whitaker house.
Yeah.
Now, the one that was torn down now, that we just talked about, the Harrison Whitaker home.
Yeah.
I think that's the one. We're going to see. He built that.
Okay. On the back, we have partial identification.
Back row, front row.
On the back of the picture.
Second person and John
Year
Ward's in there too.
1910.
Back row second.
Yeah.
A little halo over it.
V-neck, yeah.
Yeah.
Doesn't look a little light there.
It doesn't.
I thought maybe she was one of the younger kids, but she's one of the older ones. And I thought, so John Ward, where's he?
The
Oh, right
third
there,
person.
back of,
Mr.
Yeah.
the teacher.
John Ward, those who don't know, was our president of the bank down in Gore for years.
Western Frederick.
Western Frederick, yeah.
Now, is that the old schoolhouse on the hill that we talked about a while ago?
Yes.
It looks like it.
Yeah.
Okay, would someone read the names? I think this is interesting.
Margaret Monroe, Gertrude Ward, Lillian Sloniker, Ernest Eaton, Wood Lovett, Candy Sloniker, John Ward, Nellie Eskridge, Leonard Serball, Ethel Mosey, Juanita Jackson, Grannis Funkhauser, Gary Shanholtz, Harry McKee, Wes Sloniker, Howard Mosey teacher, Dorcas Ramsburg, Alvy, looks like Serball, Francis Ramsburg, and then Juanita Jackson again.
Yeah.
And there's a couple questions on it.
She's a quick mover. Couldn't sit still in class.
I didn't realize we're running out of time, and I put too much in. Maybe we can do a few more.
Yes, yes.
Okay, this is the Benjamin McDonald house on North River. There's a swinging bridge that crosses over onto North River Bridge. Okay?
Oh, yeah.
We'll go on. I could talk more about that. That's Evan Hyatt's daughter that married Benjamin McDonald. Next. That's a log cabin being restored. That was the Moreland house in North River Mills. And that was the beginning of the restoration. I'm going in the front door. Go to the next one. The Gilpins.
Gilson. So they call it the Kump house.
Kump. Yeah, Kump's later owned it. But the Morelands owned it around before 1850. Here's a better view after it's been restored. The porch has been put on, the kitchen. Okay. Lost Rock Inn. All right. Now here's what I've been waiting for. This is the dirt road, US 50, going up Schaffnaker Mountain. It's got all the curves, the original curves.
Remember those old fences?
And that's either a Model T, could be a Model T.
Oh, yeah.
My cousin used to race on that road. Years ago, didn't you, Ronnie?
I don't know what year that is, probably 1920s. And here's a Dulier stood in the same spot that the other guy took a picture in the 1920s. And each curve is identifiable and equal.
Now we do it down the middle. That's what we used to do.
Now they've, yeah. Well, I used to drive down the middle when it was like that.
Oh, yeah. We did.
This was a band that played for Christmas Bazaar early 1980s. On the left is Bob Jordan, he's deceased. On the back, standing up playing bass, is Lenny Perry, he's deceased. That's Paul Roomsberg,
Playing mandolin.
sitting there playing the mandolin, and that's yours truly there on the right. Okay.
Look at that mustache.
There's Jack Schaffnaker, Joe Shanholtz Largent, and I.
Carolyn McKee.
There was a yard sale, and they asked us to play music right there on the main street, and cars stopped and listened to music out of state cars. And we were surprised. They wanted to hear the music. And we really enjoyed that afternoon. The boy on the left is Dulier's.
German?
Yeah.
So the house in the background, what was that? We're trying to figure.
Like where y'all were.
Not that picture, the other, that.
Yeah,
Wilmer, what's in the background?
the house.
Looks like a church window.
And I've forgotten whose yard and whose house it was.
Yeah.
Is that a shutter? Looks like a long
Yeah.
Maybe it's a shutter, yeah.
Who's the lady there?
Carolyn McKee.
Yeah.
Carolyn Lee.
On the right or the left?
She left back
No,
to back.
on the right's Joe Channel.
Joe Shannon's
Yeah.
on the right.
Well, that's Hanson Fry again. Next. Here's a picture that hung in the parlor of the Moss Rock Inn. That's George Nixon. You can't make him out very well. He was one of the first settlers in Capon Valley. Born about 1718. That's old. His son was William Nixon.
Oh, that's better.
Wow.
Born when George was about 70 years old. When his son was born.
Wow.
Go to the next one. I doctored the next one up a little bit. You get a better view.
I can't get the arrow. Well, you enlarged. It's still enlarged.
It's still enlarged.
Take it down to the original, and then you can get your hair back. Or
There you go.
There it is. George Nixon. That's Lizzie Nixon Offutt next. There's William Nixon, the son of old George that you just saw.
Looks like a judge.
He died about 1864 or so during the Civil War. He was a delegate to the Virginia State Legislature.
Yeah.
Wealthy man, slave owner.
Friend of the Nixons up at Capon Chapel?
Yes.
Thought they were.
And that's his sale bill. 1869.
Samuel Cooper, his name there, down there at the bottom with J.J. Offutt and Lemuel Nixon.
Yeah. Lemuel Nixon.
1869.
And that's old Dr. Offutt.
That's the one that delivered the babies?
Yes.
I was telling them this afternoon, Dr. Offutt's name is in a lot of birth certificates. People that he delivered, they named after middle name was Dr.
Yeah.
Offutt.
Yeah.
Many
that.
families we've.
Look at his ears.
That's why what do you think?
That's probably why he let his hair grow, yes.
He might have been father.
Yes, he might have been father.
He might have been what?
Might have been the father of these kids.
That sounds like a whole chapter.
Maybe he added the middle name.
This is another picture that hung on Moss Rock Inn of George Nixon's wife, Rachel McBride. And that's a rare picture too.
Oh, it is.
That will be of interest. That's Amos Pugh's obituary. It gives a lot of information that I didn't know or I'd forgotten. Next. You can print it out. That's the courthouse. I don't know who the people are.
You know the event?
Somebody said it was a teachers meeting. What do you think?
Well, I don't know, because some of those are kids there, and usually they were not, I think, present at the teachers meeting. The teachers meeting was all adults, so I've never been able to figure out what that is.
That's the old courthouse too.
Yeah.
Yeah. But they have power lines.
Sometimes they perform for the teachers though, they put more.
And the statue's not there.
Where was the older one?
1980 1920 was the World War I statue, wasn't it, in front? But, well, that was before, that was the old courthouse anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Where was the old courthouse
The fence,
Same location.
the fence from that courthouse ended up at the Jonathan Hyatt Cemetery over near Pleasantdale, just down the road from where Warren Doolier's last residence was.
Bought it at auction.
I like this picture. That road I traced from Loom, across Timber Mountain, the roadbed, past this building, on over to the Benjamin McDonald house that we just saw a while ago, continued to Hollow Road. And that's an old roadbed from many years ago, from Loom to Crittenden Hollow.
Charlie Hardison talked about going that way to play in Bloomery from North River Mills. He would cut across this way.
Yeah. Okay. There's Jack Schaffnaker. I spent many nights playing music, many days and weekends with Jack. I was fascinated with his guitar playing.
He doesn't have any of his cats with him. You know, Jack had a house full of cats. I used to take my son down there because he wanted to learn to play guitar. So he took a couple lessons from Jack. And Jack must have had, Gerald said, 8 or 9 cats. They would hang around his neck and be on his shoulders and everything while he was playing.
Yeah, Jack had a lot of cats. Jack was a worm farmer. He collected newspapers and let them get knee deep in his house. You could hardly walk in his house. And if you ever criticized Jack's house when you went in, you never got invited back. And there weren't many people that were welcome in his house. Jack had a lot of sympathy for animals, cats. He had mice in the house, but with all those cats, they didn't live long. Jack would leave out cheese for the mice because he felt sorry for them because they didn't have anything to eat. And the cats would hear the mouse coming and jump up on the table and just sweep everything off the table. I mean, his cans of pork and beans that were open and everything would be on the floor. Many times I would play until midnight with Jack, sometimes 12 hours in a row. I was just so caught up with playing music then with Jack. And he was worth coming out here. And he went with me to copy graveyards, and he told me a lot of stories that I wouldn't have gotten elsewise. You know,
he was such a gentle man, but Fred Whitlock Jr. was talking about them having to call the Alan Serball to take a gun away from him because he was holding people at gunpoint at Daisy's, I think. Daisy's Shanholes. That's such a gentle.
Did he just play? He never sang much, did he? He just always played the guitar.
No, he always played.
That's what I thought.
Yeah, and his mother was Shannon, so Jack and I were like third cousins, I guess. And I never knew that until after I wrote the Shannon's book. But he's quite a character. Here's Howard Mosey again, out front.
And this is Capon Bridge School again?
I've forgotten what school. That's a Capon Bridge School.
Okay.
What does it say on there? Can you see?
No,
It doesn't say.
Does he have his paddle in his hand?
You're right. It's got a paddle on the side.
A lot of high top shoes.
Yeah.
We were looking for famous people. Here's a famous person. He served under 7 governors in the state of Virginia. He signed 4 of my 5 children's birth certificates in Virginia. He went to elementary school, I guess, at the Coldstream School.
And then one of those final lines there says, Dr. Kerns, that brother Ellis Shanholtz of Capon Bridge. So
Ellis's brother.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
that would be Carol Kay's uncle. And,
Yeah, his
yes.
remains are at Sandy Ridge Cemetery. Yeah.
And he went hunting every year in Hampshire County, every year of his life after he left here. He graduated from the University of Virginia Medical School, and was in public health his whole career. He used to come to the Shanholtz reunions. I got to know him quite well. He lived into his upper 90s. Very outstanding man. I think he's worthy of mention in the book.
Yes.
Okay. Here is the sign, Christie Sign family gathering. That house is near Highview. It is in Highview. Okay. And here's Reverend Christie Sign picture.
Nice. Nice reflection.
Okay, here's that tannery that the horse walked all around the perimeter and had a chain in the center and ground the grain. And this was the pond, that was a tannery pond. And this is written up in some history book. But that's located on the Bloomery Road, Bloomery Pike. That's the Somerville house. A medical doctor, Somerville, owned that back during the Civil War. But that was one horse tannery. Sorry we don't have the horse today and the illustration of it, but it's interesting, the pond is still there.
That house is still standing, correct?
That was a tannery pond.
Before you get to Upsis.
That's where Pat and Donald and all the kids,
Okay.
McDonald's lived.
Okay, this is the 1871 list of all the teachers in Hampshire County. This came from the state archives. And I see your great-grandfather, Shirley. See his name?
Basil.
Shanholtz.
Yes.
Basil W.
Yeah.
Shanholtzer.
My dad was named after him.
That's your great-grandfather?
Yes.
Yeah. So that's 1871, and well, it's cut off. It gives the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 ratings we were talking about a while ago. Someone had
Brenda, I think did you have the list, Brenda? The ratings of.
No, that was Debbie.
Debbie.
Debbie,
Yes.
yeah, Debbie had it. So there's that's a grading system. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Cephas Garvin, Earl. There's a Hieronymus name we were talking about tonight. Okay. That's the road bed of the Colonial Road across Sandy Bridge. It's very obvious.
Is that on John Whitaker's property? Looks kind of familiar with what I've seen where we hunted. Sandy
That's
Ridge.
not far up the road.
Yeah.
From
Audrey Baker's?
From Otis Baker's house.
Yeah.
On the left, yeah. And there's a Kidwell Cemetery there we were looking for on the mountain. Okay. That's a house of Azariah Wolford. along the Cape River. All those houses are gone now. Okay. Now that's a real crow on top of Cleve Wolford's head. It was a pet crow. He would fly in there every evening for food and drink.
Is that Randall Strother's, where their house is now?
Cleve Wolford, I think, lives where Dorothy Swisher lives.
Where, who?
Dorothy Swisher, she's
Yeah.
in her 90s.
Next
That's
to
where
Washington.
Cleve's, wasn't it Brenda? Wasn't that Cleve's house?
That was,
Now look at the next.
Ray and Dolly Wolford. Ray used to be there.
I think Cleves was in the back of both of those guys.
Was he?
I think it was that farmway in the back where.
Okay.
Oh, yeah, Cedar Mountain in the background.
Yeah. Well, I think they were brothers, weren't they?
They could
Cleve and
be.
Ray.
The next one, here the crow came to get his dinner and water. He's waiting on Cleve to come out. But the crow lived in the wild. Now how he tamed him, I don't know. And we'll make this our last picture. We've run way over. It's 9:10. I can't believe it. Okay, thank you. Thank you very much.